I'm going to go ahead and get started then. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Um, we're going to go ahead and do a webinar of advice from alumni in Spain. Um, my name is Danielle Ramsey Smith. I am the program manager for specifically Barcelona, but I work with a lot of Spain here at ISA. Today, I'm joined by some of our amazing alumni who have been to Spain and gone on some of the programs. They're going to share some more about what you should know before studying abroad in Spain. Also with us today is Alex Halverson, a member of our campus partnerships teams. He's monitoring the chat and will be dropping in helpful links along the way. If you have any questions, he'll also monitor the chat for those and help you out in there. He has studied a year with ISA in Granada, so he has a ton of expertise about that as well. Um, Before we jump right in and hear from our alumni, let's take a quick look at Spain and see everything that it has to offer. There are so many reasons to love Spain, but we're just going to go over a quick few of them to give you an overview. Um, One of the best things is the food, from tapas to paella to, oh, the patatas bravas. You can never get enough. There are so many cool things to try. Um, the people and the culture, that's one of the draws for Spain. It really can't be beat. You can explore everything in this culture-rich country, from flamenco music and dance to bullfights, fantastic beaches, and the amazing sunshine on the coast. Siesta. I'm sure y'all have heard of siesta before. It's kind of synonymous with Spain. Everyone shuts down over the lunch hour. You get to take a nice little afternoon nap or rest and, really engage in balancing your work and your life and school. Just kind of take a rest for the day. It's one of the most amazing things. Um, and then classes. Speaking of classes, there's language exchange. You can practice some Romance language, do some intercambios, meet some locals that way. But one of the main draws for Spain is the language. You can take some great Spanish classes while abroad. All right, our locations. We have a total of 8 cities and 19 different universities that we work with. Essentially, that just means there's something for everyone. There's mountains and beaches to vibrant city centers, and each place has a whole different personality and vibe of its own. With so many different options, really, no matter what you're studying or what vibe you're looking for, there's something that will have to meet your course needs. Um, Also, in each of these locations, our student accommodations are some of the highest quality that we have available. Depending on your location, you can choose a host family, university residencia housing, or go off campus and choose some apartment living. So there's something for everybody. Help along the way. So as I said at the beginning of this, I'm a program manager. Part of my role is to help get you prepared to study abroad. We'll help you turn in your application and get all the forms and documents and everything ready before you leave, help you kind of know when to depart and what to expect before you go. We'll do a pre-departure orientation online. So program managers really are here to help you once you decide to study, help you all the way through for when you leave. There's a ton of us here. You can see some of our pictures down in the bottom left there are the program managers. Um, and then we also have an amazing Spain team who are on site in Spain. It's incredibly robust with over 30 in-country staff members who are ready to support you from the moment you get off the plane until you're headed back to the US. They're always happy to lend an ear or share some of their favorite local spots. I always ask them for personal recommendations. They're so kind. Um, our on-site staff also help to plan excursions. So when you're abroad and you're in your city, they'll help you explore the city or the region and get to know that a little bit more. Some of those excursions are included in your program fees, and it's a great way to experience local culture, venture outside the city, and meet other ISA students. Funding facts. This is super important, and I know a ton of people have questions about like funding and how to fund a study abroad experience. Um, a couple things to note. I'm not going to go super in depth here, but if you're an out-of-state student, studying abroad may actually be less expensive than staying in your home university, just because of the exchange rate and, the different program costs. There's a tons of reasons why that may be true. If you already use financial aid, you can check with your financial aid office to see if you can apply that to your program abroad. Sorry, I'm trying not to pay attention to the chat because Alex has it taken care of. Yeah, but a lot of times you can use your financial aid funding to apply to your program. Same with scholarships. If you use any scholarships, you may be able to apply those to your ISA program as well. I would advise checking with your financial aid office or even checking in with your program manager, and we'll be able to help you find the right next steps. If you haven't looked at your budget, maybe consider taking a look at your budget, getting a part-time job, and maybe saving beforehand. That'll give you a little bit of extra spending cash, all that good stuff before you leave. You could also ask for funds for your trip abroad instead of gifts for this holiday season. I know ISA also awards some scholarships, and you can turn in those with your application. So take a look at the ISA website for scholarship opportunities, and then also your home universities may offer study abroad scholarships. So check out there as well. All right, advice from alumni. So what's next if you haven't already applied? I strongly encourage you to set up an advising appointment. Our team can help to narrow down the options of the programs and fit your needs. Alex should drop a link in the chat right now for you. And you can book an appointment with them to go over everything. Once you've chosen your program, you'll need to apply with us as well as your home university. So you'll have 2 applications going. So be sure to stay in touch with both your ISA program manager and your home university study abroad office. That way they can help you out. Now, if you are we're gonna, sorry, I was making sure I'm on the right slide here. If you're just starting out or enrolling in your program, it's really helpful to talk to people who have been there and have done it. So we're so excited to connect you to some of today's panelists who have been there and done that. And they can help answer some of the questions that I see being put into the chat. Alex is going to drop a link in the chat for a form where you can fill out to be connected directly with some of our alumni, and they can answer some of your questions one-on-one that way as well. And we're happy to connect someone who shares similar identities to you if you have questions about that, if you want personal experiences or advice from that side as well. So all that out of the way, I just threw a ton of cool information at you. But now we're going to go ahead and meet our amazing alumni who have firsthand experience studying abroad in Spain. So really quick, let's do some introductions. Can you please share your name, home university, and where you studied abroad? Let's go ahead and start with Cora.
Hi, everybody. My name's Cora, and I studied abroad this past summer in Madrid, Spain for a month. I took a couple Spanish classes there with ISA. Sorry, was there anything else I needed to add?
Your home university.
Sorry, my home university is UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore County.
Perfect. Thanks, Cora. Gabrielle.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle Stepick, and I'm a senior at Mercyhurst University in Erie, Pennsylvania. I just returned from an academic year in Valencia, Spain.
Amazing. Aurelia.
Hi, my name's Aurelia. I am from, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, it wasn't showing on mine that I was like lit up green or whatever, but I'm from University of Kentucky here in Kentucky, and I did a semester last spring in Granada.
Love Granada. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Bola, and I'm a senior at North Carolina State University in Raleigh. And I just got back from my spring semester abroad, well, in May, in Sevilla, Spain.
Amazing. It's great to meet you all. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to go ahead and jump in with some easy questions for you. Why did you choose your particular city in Spain? Sarah, since you were last, let's go ahead and start with you. Why Seville?
Yeah, sure. So I would say my main reason was it came down to the finances. So the program that I chose was the cheapest, and it actually had some of the best courses for what I was looking at, as well as I had some personal connections to the city. So my advisor at my home university is actually from Sevilla. And so she kind of pushed me towards that direction. And I loved it every moment. So
That is so cool. Gabrielle, what drew you to Valencia?
Well, I mainly chose it because of their biology course offerings, because it's kind of hard to find biology courses abroad. So it was pretty much the only city that I could find offering classes for me. But as soon as I started researching it, I fell in love with the city.
So cool. Cora, what made you choose Madrid?
I actually did a project in Spanish 202 at my university where I was pretending to be a student at La Universidad Antonio de Nebrija, which is where I ended up studying. And I just thought it would be a nice full circle moment. So when I saw it as one of the program options, it caught my eye, and it kind of felt like that's the program that I needed to choose. And so I was able to go there and study.
That is so cool. I love that. And Aurelia, why Granada?
So for me, it was two reasons. One was the courses. I didn't have like particular needs, but I did, see those, and I was like, oh, those are the courses I want to take. Also, size. Granada isn't as big as like Sevilla or Madrid, and I thought that I would like something a little more, dare I say, like intimate, city wise. So that's why I went with Granada.
Yeah, for sure. Granada is definitely an more intimate city. Um, cool. For those of you who haven't applied yet, what was the application process like? Cora, can you share like your experience with the application process?
The application process I thought went very smoothly. ISA lets you know and keeps you updated on what you need to turn in and when, and they are flexible. Even though you should not wait until the last minute, they will help you and are flexible if you do end up going past the deadline. But the application process, honestly, I felt like it was more stressful making sure that my application stuff was done through my home university than it was over for 1 month over the summer. I didn't need a visa or anything, so I don't know that my application process was as extensive, but everything was super easy.
That's great, Cora. Thank you. I love the bit that you threw in there. Don't turn things in last minute, but if you need to, we are flexible for sure. Um, one other person, maybe Sarah, you mentioned doing some research. Why did you end up choosing ISA?
sure. So my home university here actually didn't offer many programs for Spanish majors. So I knew that I wanted to be somewhere where I would be immersed in the language and really push to challenge myself. So for the application process, kind of like what Cora mentioned, I did miss some deadlines, but ISA was really nice and flexible and worked with me, so I was still able to get to Spain. It is a longer process if you're wanting to do a semester or an academic year abroad. The visa process, you're definitely going to want to give yourself a few months because you never know what's going to happen with the embassies and the consulates. They kind of are not in a hurry to do things, so you just want to make sure you give them time on their side. But overall, it was a pretty easy process.
That is such great advice. Thank you, Sarah. Um, Speaking of the visa, you are going to need to apply. Do you have any other advice about the visa application process? Maybe Gabrielle?
Sure. So when you're looking to apply for your visa, because most people will need it for a semester or academic year. So I would say just go right to the consulate that is for your jurisdiction. So for me, since I go to school and live in Pennsylvania, it's New York City. So you can go on their website and find the student visa application, and it'll tell you everything that you need to know. The short-term visa for semester students is a little less involved than the academic year. But for me, I had to do a long stay visa, so you need more paperwork. So I would say if anyone's planning on doing an academic year, definitely start looking at how you can get your paperwork ahead of time, because you have to get a document from the US government with your background check, and you need a medical certificate. And those things can be pretty time consuming. So you just want to allow yourself enough time before your appointment at the consulate.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick on the visa note, you only need a visa if you're staying in Spain for 90 days or longer, like y'all mentioned, just the semester and academic year, but not even all semester programs have it. So I advise checking in with your program manager because they'll be able to help direct you. Um, and if you need help with those documents, they're a great person to ask too. About booking flights, after you have your visa, the next step is really going abroad. Aurelia, can you talk about booking your flights? Any advice for us?
Yeah, so I actually, I had a bit of an issue with flights. I had originally booked through a third party, and yeah, I got pretty good prices because of that. But then they canceled my flight and didn't tell me, and I didn't find out till 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave. And since I did a semester, I was leaving in January, and trying to fly anywhere during early January is a mess. So I would say making sure you're going through reputable sites and or just straight through airlines. It can be a little more expensive, but there's usually a bit more assurance. Also, travel insurance is awesome. Definitely something I would recommend, especially if you're going abroad, because plane tickets and stuff to Europe are they're pretty hefty price. I mean, once you're there, you're good, but just doing it early, checking in on it, and making sure you have everything you need.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. And you can travel around Europe for pretty cheap, but getting there is hard. So that's great advice. Really quick, I saw a comment in the chat. You don't need a return flight for your visa, so you can book individual flights if you want to. Let's go ahead and move on. Let's maybe talk about some common travel concerns. Prior to traveling, you'll be asked to fill out a form that shares information about dietary restrictions, a bunch of other things. And that could be a stressor for students who maybe don't know what the cuisine is like and maybe have some dietary restrictions. Gabrielle, how did the ISA team help you navigate these forms and things like that?
Sure. So I filled out I believe it was the housing form, and it included my dietary needs and my preferences related to housing and how my dietary concerns played into that. So I preferenced the apartment, but then I second guessed maybe I should be in a host family. Well, the ISA team, they got back to me about a month later telling me that it would be better to be in an apartment because of all my food dietary concerns. I'd be able to cook for myself. So they were just really helpful telling me what would be the best choice for me while I'm abroad.
Great, thank you. Speaking of homestay versus apartment, all that, Sarah, you chose a homestay. What were some concerns that you had about living with a host family?
Yeah, so I think I saw someone in the chat ask about the accents in Andalusia, which is where Sevilla was. So I was a little bit nervous at first to move in with a host family in Sevilla just because I knew the accents were going to be a little bit of a challenge. And it definitely was, but over time you get used to it. My family was super patient with me, very hospitable, always there to fulfill any needs that I had. But just like super patient overall. I really enjoyed the experience. And that is the best way to learn the language if you're wanting to immerse yourself.
Absolutely, I can second that from experience. Um, Another question I get all the time, especially regarding housing, is students want to meet each other. Y'all want to be social. Cora, with housing and making friends, was this a concern at all?
Yes, I do get along with everybody, but I was concerned that I might not be able to get along well with people I had to live with for an entire month. Um, I would say my advice would just be to go with the flow. I know that that's basic, but it does work if everyone in your group is on the same page about you all just want to have a good trip, you want to experience different things together. I think it'll work out well. Everything worked out for me. I talk to one of my roommates from Spain almost every single day still, and she's come visit me already since we've been home. You definitely make good quality friends on this trip, and I say groups are definitely close. Everyone in the program is close.
I'm so glad to hear that. That's always fun when you get to have those lifelong connections, you know? Um, Also with housing, the stuff that you bring to put in your house, packing, it's super stressful. Everyone is not sure if they underpack or overpack, you know? Um, Relatable. Sarah, what's your advice on what to take or leave behind?
For people that are studying for a semester or like a whole year, I would say bring less clothes than you think you need. Bring basic clothes that kind of work with different seasons, but you're going to buy a lot more than you realize ahead of time. And also for toiletries, I found that it's better to bring less toiletries on the way there because it weighs down your suitcases. And then you can actually buy a lot of toiletries there for usually cheaper in Spain than they are in the United States. So,
Yeah, yep, fantastic. Um, Gabrielle, you were packing for more than a semester. You had a whole year. How did you do it?
Well, I did a little bit of research into the climate of Valencia because throughout Spain, the climates are quite different. So Valencia, it's warm, but it still gets cold during the winter. So I made sure that I was planning on packing some colder weather clothes, but I did bring a majority of warmer weather clothes. I ended up having to buy a lot of clothes there because I only had one suitcase. And it was overweight. So definitely if you're going for the whole year, bring two suitcases. It's just a need. And I also did have to like get all my prescriptions ahead of time. So I had to have my insurance do an override so I could get a year's worth of prescriptions.
Yeah, that's a good point about your prescriptions. You always want to make sure you have enough for the whole semester. I see a question in the chat about packing. Was one suitcase and a duffel bag enough for Granada?
So I went to Granada, absolutely overpacked. Um, the amount with which I overpacked is unprecedented, way too much. If you're only going for a semester, it's plenty, honestly, unless you are like stacking up on, medications or something else that's not clothing. I think it'll be fine. Like, I really wish I would have brought less. I brought so much stuff. I ended up having to ship one of my suitcases back because it was just so hard to travel with. Um, so yeah, a, one suitcase and a duffel bag is probably more than enough if you're just doing a semester.
Perfect. Thanks for your advice. So you're packed, you've applied, you've got your flights, your visas. You're ready to go. How were you feeling before departure? Cora, were you nervous, anxious? How were you feeling before you left?
I was very, very nervous before I left. After I had officially been accepted and I knew that I was going to go, I was really excited. But right before I had to go, I started getting crazy nerves and I thought, you know what, I don't want to go anymore. I don't think I can do this. I'm so scared, a month without my family, my friends in a foreign country. Um, but I just had to remind myself that this is something that I wanted to do, that it was going to be a good experience. Everything will work out. The second I got there and I met my roommates, we clicked instantly and everything was good. I got there during the day. ISA was super helpful. They picked us up from the airport. Um, Honestly, ISA makes the transition very smooth because you spend a little bit of time the first couple of days with them and with the whole program. So you're not just, left by yourself. It was an easier process, but to combat those nerves, I would just say to relax, remember that this is something that you want to do, and it will in the end be a good trip.
Amazing. Aurelia, it sounds like you had a unique experience with your flight being canceled and all the luggage. Can you talk us through what happened and how, if ISA helped you through that?
So on top of all of that, let's just say I have the worst luck in the world, and I fell through my ceiling the day before I was supposed to leave, and I had to go to the ER and get 18 stitches in my leg the night before I was supposed to go to leave. I still made my flight. So I made it. So that was, another unique circumstance. Only me, but ISA was very helpful through that whole process. I did have to see like a doctor multiple times while I was in Spain just to, get stitches removed, checkups, that kind of stuff because of the way that I was injured. And they set me up, I mean, like literally with everything, transportation, interpreters, like they went there with me and like stayed with me until I went back. So it was very much, I was never left alone to have to deal with anything in an unfamiliar situation. So that was like super helpful. The on-site staff is awesome. Like they really do go above and beyond all day, all night. Like I would just call them and be like, hey, so like XYZ, that kind of stuff. With all of that, it was a much easier process than you would probably think with everything that kind of went wrong. The flights themselves were fine. I ended up upgrading my seat just to have extra leg room because I couldn't bend my leg. But when I got there, they were very accommodating with everything. So it was honestly like a really good experience, barring the fact that my leg was all messed up. But everyone was very helpful.
I'm so glad that you had like the ISA staff to help you through that. This isn't a prepared question, but did anyone else ever go to the doctor while they were abroad? Gabrielle or Sarah or Cora? No.
I did not go to the doctor, but one of my roommates and a couple people in my program did, and they said that it was actually very simple. They were a little bit worried about going because they thought it would be difficult, it would be like at home where you're waiting just hours and hours just for somebody to figure out what's wrong with you. But it was simple and they got their medication that they needed easily. They didn't have any trouble.
That's great. Yeah, I know it's super scary to go. Like when I was in college, I still made my mom call the doctor for me. So being in a foreign country and going to the doctor could be super intimidating. But like Aurelia and Cora said, it's an easy process, and the ISA staff who are in your city are there to help you through it. Um, cool. That was quite an experience. I got to switch back into gear now. I'm so glad you're okay. Um, Coursework and campus life. Aurelia, I'm going back to you here. What was different about your classes at your host university?
So most immediately, classes were so much smaller. I go to a public university here in the States. My class is like 6,000 or 7,000 people. So most of our classes are, 50 plus people minimum. I think the biggest class I took was 13 people. And so it's a lot more intimate, a lot more like individual time. And I would say that at least at the school I was at and the classes I took, which I took all Spanish classes because I'm a Spanish major. But I took like Spanish language, culture, like that type of classes. And I feel like they were a lot more focused on like, they were not lecture style classes. They were more like seminar where you're, talking with people, working through it together. It was very different, but in a good way. Like I had such a great time. I think I learned more in those like 3 or 4 months that I was there than I did the first like 2.5 years in my Spanish classes.
Cora, back to you. You were a biology major, is that right? And you had specific classes that you wanted. Um, were you able to take them, and what were some of the differences in the classes that you saw between the US and Spain?
I actually did not take any biology classes. I just took Spanish classes, but it was the same thing, it depends on the university, but my university has kind of a strict schedule of classes. So I took 2 Spanish classes that I made sure would transfer back to my university for what I needed to fulfill credit, which wasn't a big deal. Everything worked out well between both universities. But the difference I would say is class sizes in Madrid are definitely smaller, and teachers value that. My teacher split us up on the first day because there was 30 people in the class, and he thought that was insane. But I know that at home you can have 300 people in a class, and that's just normal. So teachers value time, one-on-one time almost with their students in classes. Our teachers valued us learning how to speak like a local, learning the lingo, and they gave us a lot of advice on the places to go so that we could kind of assimilate into this new place. I liked it a lot because my teachers at home are not very personable, and they do not talk much with their students one-on-one. They kind of send TAs to do it, but it is the complete opposite in Madrid.
Thank you. Gabrielle or Sarah, did you have like some specialty science classes? I know one of you said that you were in Spain for that reason.
It was me. So I took mostly biology and or just science classes while I was abroad. I transferred a lot of my credits back as just electives, but I did have some success being able to take some of my core credits for my biology major as well. So the classes over there are a lot less involved, I think, than our classes are here. So normally we have like a separate laboratory course, but in Spain they have just like a set period of time. It's called a práctica, and it's usually you have 1 or 2, and it's just like maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and you have like maybe 2 meeting times a week, and you do lab work. So it's definitely a lot less work on the laboratory end.
Awesome, thank you. And while we're on the subject of classes, Sarah, would you mind speaking a little bit to like how people dress for class, if you were able to make friends, if people were generally like nice, like when you go out to meet people or other people in your courses?
Yeah, so I took mostly elective courses, and the way it worked was a lot of international students were also in my classes. So I think pretty much all of my classes were fellow Americans that were coming to study abroad. So it was kind of nice having those people like that you could relate to on a cultural and language level after like going through a city where you don't understand people and you may not understand the culture. But as far as what people dress like, people in Spain, they dress similar to us depending on like they don't wear sweatpants to class. That was the biggest thing I noticed. They don't wear leggings. They do dress to impress a little bit more. So if you're someone that likes to dress a little bit more formally, you will fit in, but they don't really like wear sweatpants or yoga pants like we do in the United States.
Yeah, it always feels like they're going somewhere. Um, cool. Well, thank you all for answering those academic and campus life questions. Um, one more thing, once you're done with class, you're on the weekends. there are amazing things to do in Spain, but another great reason to study abroad in Spain is you can travel so easily throughout Europe. Aurelia, did you do any traveling? Do you have any advice?
Yeah, so I actually traveled a lot during my time. I think like practically every other weekend while I was there, I traveled. I think it off the top of my head, like 6 or 7 different countries, not including like what we saw in Spain. It's super easy. Flights are so cheap once you're in Europe. Like I would get flights to like France for like $30. Like you just got to be like keeping an eye on it. Um, Travel wise, I will say from experience, Granada, usually when you're in Granada, you have to travel to Malaga to fly anywhere because Granada has like the smallest airport in the world. Like it is literally only 4 gates. Like you have to walk onto the runway to get to every single one of the flights, which was an experience considering I'd only ever been on bigger flights before. Um, but even then, like a bus tickets are like $10. Like it's really not hard to get to like Malaga. We went to Sevilla a couple times to leave as well, to go places. So it's really not hard to travel. And at least I don't know if this is like 100% like standard. My university, we had classes 4 days a week. So we usually had 3-day weekends, which made it so easy to travel. There was like ample opportunity.
Amazing. Did anyone else have experiences traveling? I see Sarah and Gabrielle nodding. Gabrielle, what was your travel experience?
Sure. So during my first semester, I had more strict class schedule, so I didn't have Fridays off like the rest of the students. So I traveled a lot around the Valencian community. I did weekend trips or day trips with the Erasmus group, so it was a great way to be able to meet other international students that are there on their exchange as well. And then when I did have more free time, I took weekend trips to other European countries. I ended up traveling to 12 different countries in addition to Spain.
That's amazing. One of the other perks of going with this ISA is if you're not into planning, we plan some excursions for you, which is still a really great way to get to know the local area. Sarah, could you talk maybe about some of your favorite excursions from when you were abroad?
Yeah, so in Sevilla, we stayed mostly outside of Sevilla, we went to mostly the southern cities in Spain. So we did go to Granada and Cordoba, which is not too far away from Sevilla, which were really nice to see. And then we also went to Portugal, actually, which was probably my favorite because they planned everything, like as far as hotel to where we ate to the things that we got to see. So it was really great not having to worry about planning everything and just being able to enjoy the experience of being in Portugal.
That's awesome. Portugal was also one of my favorite countries. So for the person in the chat, check out Portugal. And then one other thing I saw from the chat is weather, specifically Granada and Barcelona. Aurelia, could you talk about the weather in Granada?
So Granada weather was actually not a lot different than what I get in Kentucky, which was actually nice. I would say it stays like generally pretty even. It doesn't get super, super cold. It usually doesn't get super, super hot. Of course, I was there when they had like a terrible heat wave, but that's not often. I would say it stays pretty temperate. There's, a fair amount of rain as you get anytime you get on that side of the mountain. So there was like a decent amount of rain, but nothing too heavy, like at least what I would consider heavy. We did have a dust storm while we were there. Dusts, from coming across the Mediterranean, just coated everything. But it wasn't bad, honestly. Like I feel like the weather was both predictable enough and adjustable enough to where I never felt unprepared for it. Like I brought a light winter jacket because I arrived in January. That got me through pretty much everything. It never got cold enough to need anything more than that. During the summer, like shorts, but I was never overheating. I felt that it was pretty temperate.
Yeah, and then I saw Barcelona was another one. And we don't really have anyone here from Barcelona, but that's my program. So it's pretty similar. It'll get chilly in the January, February. So like bring a good jacket, but then it gets nice and warm and you're right on the beach for the summer months. Um, so yeah, now that you know everything that you know that you've studied abroad, um, what advice would you give your former self before you left? Sarah, let's go ahead and start with you.
I would say I would go back and tell myself to be flexible and open-minded because you're going to experience a lot. You're going to see a lot that's different than what you see in the United States. You may hear statements or things that just may rub you the wrong way, but it's just different. It's part of the culture over there. They're more forward than we are. They don't say thank you all the time. They don't say sorry all the time, but it's not them being rude. It's just how it is. And I would also say don't be don't be upset if you're homesick. That's part of being abroad. There was days where I would be fine, and then there would be days I'd wake up and I was like, "Oh, I want to go home." But don't let that discourage you from what you're experiencing abroad. And don't feel bad about being homesick. It doesn't take away from what you're experiencing abroad. It's still going to be a great experience no matter what.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. How about you, Cora? What advice would you give to yourself before going abroad?
I would definitely tell myself to pack less clothes. I brought a full-size suitcase and a carry-on and my backpack, and I had thought that I took some stuff out, but I didn't take out enough. I went shopping the first or second day that I got there, and went shopping throughout the trip. Now, if you're not a shopper, you might not have the same experience, but if you are, you're definitely going to see different things. Also, as you spend time in a new place, you're going to adjust to the fashion. That's what I had to do. I realized that, oh, some of the stuff I brought might be something that I like to wear at home, but over here they wear something like longer skirts, or for example, I didn't bring one and I wanted one while I was there. So keep that in mind. And my other thing would be to listen to your teachers more so than students. If the students are from the US or international, I found that teachers gave better local advice of places to go and what to see, and students gave more touristy advice, which is fine, but just to keep that in mind as well.
Fantastic. Cora, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You were talking about some shopping, and I've seen in the chat this come up a couple times. Are things more expensive in Spain than they are in the US?
I was actually during this call, I've been replying to everybody as I could in the chat. I was about to get to that one. I noticed that the I guess the cost of living is a lot lower in Spain, at least from where I live in the US. And things were a lot more accessible than I was expecting. I'm not saying that you're going to find brand name things from the US in Spain, but you can find off-brand versions. You can find some name brand versions as well. And I would say that they're either the same price or sometimes a little bit lower. There are select things that are going to be more expensive, but overall, I felt that things were a lot cheaper over there than they were for me at home. And I was pleasantly surprised, and that's why I kept shopping.
Absolutely. I would say across the board, things are pretty cheap. You can always ask your program manager. They have like a price breakdown that they can send you of estimated costs to help you plan. Um, let's get back to the advice you would give yourself before you leave. Gabrielle, what advice would you give yourself?
I think I would say push myself to speak with locals more and speak in the language because I didn't really know much Spanish before I went. But as I started learning, I was very timid in speaking to the locals, and I wish I just would have done that because my Spanish would be 10 times better than it is right now. So yeah, I think that's what I would say to myself.
Amazing. Thank you. Um, and then Aurelia, what advice would you give yourself before you left?
Um, Three things. One, don't underestimate the power of homesickness. I know Sarah already touched on it. I got hit like kind of hard about halfway through. Um, so kind of identifying what you associate with home and finding a way to have that where you are. So like culturally for me, food is a very big thing. And that's how I connect with my culture here at home. And so having like being able to cook foods for myself that I would eat at home, like on occasion was a nice way for me to help kind of temper that homesickness. I would also say just to, you know, be be ready to be out there. I'm an introvert, and so like being extroverted is very hard as an introvert, but putting myself out there and like really making friends, I made such great bonds that I really didn't expect being as introverted as I am. And so just being willing to like allow people in, even if this is only like a quote unquote temporary thing, like these memories are forever. And so being ready for that experience, I think is very helpful.
That's amazing. Thanks so much. I love that you divided it up into three parts. Um, all right, I've got another one for everybody. We're going to go ahead and leave off on a life-changing moment, something you'll never forget from going abroad. Gabrielle, let's go ahead and start with you.
I would say that my most life-changing moment was my week-long trip to Scotland. It was something I had dreamed of for a really long time, and it lived up to all my expectations. Edinburgh, the capital city, is absolutely beautiful, and if you venture outside, you can see the Highlands, and it's just so amazing. While I was there, I met a lot of great people that I hung out with. So I think overall, it was just like a really life-changing memory, I guess.
That's amazing. Scotland is a really cool place. Um, Sarah, what about you?
Yeah, so my life-changing moment was towards the end of my time abroad, and it was actually taking a solo trip to Tenerife and the Canary Islands. And it was really scary at first, but I knew that I had wanted to do something like that felt independent on my own during my time abroad. And just seeing how much I had progressed and how much more confident I had gotten in my ability to speak the language and interact with the culture led me to that moment where I felt comfortable enough to travel there. And Europe overall, like especially Spain, felt very safe to me where I could do that as a female, especially. So that was really life changing, just getting to experience those memories, and I won't forget that for sure.
So cool. Thanks, Sarah. Um, Cora, what was that last moment for you? Last moment?
Um, so I have two things. I don't think either were like super big. For me, the day that I realized how grateful I was to be in Madrid, how much I needed this trip, I was just walking home one day. It was my second week. It was my second week. Actually, it was my first week of school, my first Friday of school. I was just walking home from school, and I just really took a minute and looked around and realized, wow, I'm in Madrid right now. And that's kind of when I knew that I was supposed to be there. I was supposed to go there, and everything just kind of fell into place for me. But I took a weekend trip with some people from my program to Ibiza, and we went on a little like cruise at sunset. And I was just on that boat looking out at the water at one of the most beautiful sights I've ever seen. And I think that was my wow moment if I had to have one. It was just me and these new friends that I had made after I had also developed more appreciation of the language, the culture, and I was just here, just absolutely enjoying life on a boat at sunset. It was gorgeous.
Oh, you're making me want to go back, guys, all of you. Um, I'm so glad that you're having these life-changing moments. Last but definitely not least, Aurelia, what was your life-changing moment?
So I had two. very similar to Sarah. I had a moment where I was alone. It was actually during Santa Semana. I was in London and I had decided to go see a concert. So excited. My favorite band ever. They were playing and I was like, once in a lifetime. And so I traveled a few hours outside of London. Long story short, because I cannot do anything without issues, I ended up having to go 8 hours all the way around London to get back because I missed my train. And I think it was like in that moment, I was sitting there and I was like, I'm an adult. Like, I'm a person, I'm alone. And it wasn't necessarily scary, but it was kind of this moment where I was like, this is like, I don't have anyone, but kind of in a good way. Like, I had to work through that on my own. And I feel like I'm better for it because I was like able to, like problem solve that kind of stuff in a way that I never had been before. The second one, me and my friends were in Majorca, which was beautiful. I absolutely recommend going to Majorca. We went right before tourist season started, so prices were pretty cheap. We got this private boat tour. We all like went in. We were like, we'll do like one big splurge on this because we had been like penny pinching the whole time. And we were just out. The water was so clear you could see, the bottom of the ocean, not the ocean, but the sea. You could see the bottom of the sea. It was beautiful. And I just remember being like, this is it. Like, this is the moment that I will always picture when I think of Spain. Like, it is this moment, the tranquility, the peace, but the absolute wonder was just amazing.
Wow. Thank you all so much for sharing those life-changing moments with us. And hopefully everyone in this panel is going to get to go and have their own as well. Um, Thank you all for being here and have a wonderful rest of your day.